So another thing that we find in our environment that makes a huge impact on our lives, something that we interact with every day, something that is around us every day, and that's this money thing. And a lot of people talk about money being energy. I ask people, well, what is money? And they go, money is energy. And it's not. It's just a tool of exchange, a means of exchange. It's this technology has allowed so many people to become wealthy. It's caused the entire planet to become more wealthy, and because of the amount of exchange that we have, the more transactions there are, that means that there is value being created every time somebody spends money on something. They value the thing they're going to get for that money more than the money that's in their bank account. Unfortunately, most of those decisions, those value decisions, are made emotionally and are not considering the long term. We're going to get into that. And the perspective that somebody holds about money is going to dictate the energy that we give it. So imagine Elon Musk. He, what do you think his perspective is like? I think we could only imagine, but his perspective is different, definitely different than ours. And what do you think his energy, what do you imagine his energy is around it? I imagine it's very different than ours as well. So these are all things that are within our control to shift. And it's not always easy and obvious, but that's what this week is about. Modern banking is incredibly powerful. I was already talking about this as a tool, but money in itself, if we're just looking at the dollar bill, the uh, uh, in itself, just a medium of exchange is powerful in itself. Two people wanting to voluntarily exchange goods and services, and we don't have to barter anymore. It's like, okay, I got an ox, but I need you know, two plows. It's like these aren't equal. So we're able to divvy up the value a little bit and make better exchanges. And the way the modern banking system works is, without going into the details of it, is there's debt that can be created, and the money can be borrowed for creating a value and then returning that money. And the people that are controlling that money usually are the biggest winners of them all. So one of the questions I've asked myself over the years, because I recognize if if all I wanted to do was to be wealthy, then I would work in finance, because there's nothing more powerful than selling money. So uh, some people may argue with that. That's fine, but I think that we'll we may have a better conversation about that later. So modern banking is super powerful, and it is a system for creating incredible wealth, unless you find yourself on the wrong side of it. And that is the compounding interest conversation. Most of the planet finds itself on the wrong side of compounding interest, and that is they are taking on debt, and they're paying more money. They're having to return more value than what they had borrowed. And so most people are finding themselves on the wrong side of it. Some people think about this as a predatory thing, as if, debt is slavery and all this. And I would agree. It's you're not going to be financially free when you are in debt, and especially if you're in debt that's greater than the assets that you're holding, which again is most people. So even though you may end up being a slave to the debt, the the system of debt and banking has allowed the world as a whole. It's like a rising tide. It's allowed all of us to have a much more wealthy lifestyle. And what I mean by that is the amount of value that we're able to experience in our lives. Even the poorest of people in the United States, they have air conditioning and big screen TVs, and that's due to these modern finance and modern banking. Doesn't mean they're still not a slave to the system. So our goal is how do we get to be on the same side as the bankers, the lenders, all that stuff. We don't need to become bankers, but we can get into the business of putting compounding interest on our side. So an example of this right here, this is an amortization table for a loan. It's super simple, just round numbers to make it easy to understand if you don't know what I'm talking about. But say I borrow $100,000 and I'm going to pay a 5% annual interest rate on that, and uh, my annual payments is going to be 12,950. And so in the first year, the amount of interest I'm going to pay on that is going to be 5,000, and then it's going to go down over time, and I'm going to be paying more on the principal. But as you can see, this is all going to rack up. So I'm going to end up paying $29,000 tomorrow for using $100,000, or I'm going to pay back $129,000. So the person that has enough money and is spending less than they're making and they're able to lend it out eventually doesn't have to work at all. So the key is to spend less than you make and invest the rest in order to get on the right side of that compounding interest conversation. And that's a gross oversimplification, but and I don't think it's a surprise to anybody who's tuning into this, but it is where I want to take this conversation this week. And I was having dinner with a friend the other day, and this guy was one of the first people in the crypto space. He's run crypto wallets. He's created a lot of things in the crypto space. He's an investor. He also understands just financial markets in general. And he said something that really stood out to me, and that is the difference between the wealthy and the poor is the willingness to engage administratively. And basically, the average person is not willing to do the administrative work in order to become wealthy. And so, what ends up happening instead is the poor end up making up stories about the wealthy and how they're taking advantage, when all you have to do is become administratively present with what's going on with your finances and how the financial world at large works. And I can tell you, this is not a topic that interested me the least bit until the last few years. And I realized that I could keep hustling, but it's, I look around at people who are in finance and I go, oh, some people who have actually built wealth have figured out something which I've been ignoring the whole time. So this whole conversation is two parts. It's skill set plus mindset. These are the barriers to what's necessary in order to build that wealth. And this week, we're going to get into both mindset and skill set. So we are going to be handling some psycho-emotional things, but we're going to be getting into the practical aspects of how I think about money, and what I found to be really helpful from studying people who are truly building a lot of wealth. And so the idea of true financial freedom, there's levels to this, because a lot of people who come to me looking for training and building their business, they think of financial freedom as being able to make money doing the thing that they love. And that's definitely a step in the right direction. But true financial freedom is making work optional. And that means, and what requires that to be true is that you have enough income producing assets. I'll use real estate as an example. Anybody can invest in real estate. You accumulate enough income producing assets that produce enough income each year for you to live off of. Okay. And there's this story that's been propagated throughout our society, which is, just get a job, pay your social security dues, start your 401k or your IRA or whatever it is, and just put some in there and there'll be some at the end. But that is not what's happened. We had 2007, 2008. Now we've got what's happening in 2023. We are in another recession. The markets are not performing well, and if you are wanting to retire and you put all your trust into something like that right when it tanks, people that were trying to retire in 2008, 2009 weren't able to. They were having to continue working, and it just in a lot of people's eyes, it just wasn't fair. And the reality is they failed to take responsibility for building their own wealth. They thought and they believed and they bought into the idea that I can just outsource my retirement. I can outsource my financial freedom. I just trust the system. I'll just put money into it, and one day it'll be good. And that's not how this works. Just like your health, you can't outsource your health 100% to doctors and then just do whatever you want the rest of the time. It's not going to work out. And so I don't think about retirement at all. Retirement is not a thing. What is a thing is financial freedom and making work optional. And we don't need to wait till the end of our life in order to have that. We can start working on it immediately and start getting the benefits out of it immediately. People are stacking cash in the market for years and years and years and don't even touch it. If they want to pull it out, then they're penalized. Like 401ks, you know, they're BS. They're just BS. Yes, have they worked out for some people? Yes, they have. Not to the degree they need to. Most people, when they get to a retirement age, they have to reduce their lifestyle by like half or more. I think they have to live like 30% of what they did while they were working in their working years. So it's not working for most people. It's working for very few people, and it's probably working the best for people who have really high incomes and had really good discipline to just put money in a slow growth market. So I look at this and I go, if anybody who really wants to put their head down and just go hard, they can achieve this in 5 years. And I'm going to give you some steps this week that if you can adhere to these steps, you can be in the same position. And I want to create a distinction here between high income and wealth, because a lot of people think about they just throw the word rich around. This person's rich. Well, there's a lot of people who have high incomes that drive fancy cars and have big homes and all that stuff, but don't have the wealth to support that. That income goes away. Their lifestyle has to change. That's not financial freedom. I would rather have less income and more wealth. And so wealth, you build that by accumulating income producing assets. So things like real estate. If you want to get into a deeper conversation about what are the things I should be investing in and what's actually possible, we can get into that later on. Maybe not in this program, but a future program where we can get into those types of things. I'm not going to advise you do crypto, and I'm not going to advise you on putting your money anywhere in particular. I'm just going to show what the possibilities are. But what I can tell you is that on the conservative side, and this is going to be in the content this week, on the conservative side, you can get a 6% return. That's the conservative side. Savings accounts give you like 1%, 1.5%, something like that. That's a ripoff. You can invest in very conservative real estate projects, $50,000 at a time, that will pay you out. If you put $50,000 in, you'll get $3,000 back every year from that project. And there's a lot of different types of projects. I like real estate a lot because it's stable. It definitely has its own swings, but it's real. It's tangible, right? So I like to use it as an example, but I'm also a really big fan of investing in other things. And I would love to hear from anybody who's an expert in investing that may be in the group to chime in and let me know their thoughts and their recommendations. So there's a concept that I've been using for a while, which is spend all your money. So you're going to spend all your money. You're going to spend some of it now. And, the goal is to you're either going to spend it now or you're going to spend it later, right? So if you save it, that's still money you're going to spend at some point, unless you pass away and there's a bunch of money in the account, you obviously didn't spend that. But the idea is you want to spend all your money, all the money that comes into your bank account, you want it to be all out somewhere else. It's either making you money or you're spending on expenses that are affording you the lifestyle that you love. So my idea is some now, more later. All right. So I'm going to spend some of my money now, but more of my money is going to be spent on later. And that means having a plan for every penny. And so I have a way of creating a plan for every penny, which we're going to get into by the end of the program. And that's the thing that puts most people over the edge and into a really good spot. So this week we got mother and father money learning. So I know we already did a little mother father work, but we're going to talk about money specifically. We're going to get into what it's like to date money. We're going to look at some bank and credit card statements. We're going to discuss the joy of spending, and we're going to find out what your enough number is. So looking forward to seeing you guys on the coaching call this week.